Hi, everyone. Gerry Dulac along with Ray Fittipaldo. We're at the Steelers facility on the south side where we just listened to the Mike Tomlin news conference, our Steeler report brought to you by Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci, mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with 85 years of experience. Go to sdklaw.com for more information. And Ray, let's just at least start with the injuries. The good news is he expects he's optimistic Isaac Seumalo can return this week. Should be he's expected to practice, and that'll be good for the offensive line, if for no other reason that you don't have to bring Andres Pete in when you want to go to the heavy package. And then, of course, Spencer Anderson, who can't just stay in, he has to report again. At least maybe get some consistency back with that package.
Yeah, and you saw Andres Pete went offsides on the first play of the game, first and 15 instead of first and 10. That kind of got them off to a bad start. But I agree. Isaac Seumalo is a vet. Spencer Anderson is very good in that role as an extra tight end. It gives the Steelers a little bit more continuity when Isaac's in there.
And they use Spencer Anderson in that role because he's fairly athletic, and he can move. It isn't like they could just put Andres Pete in that role and be as effective, and that's one of the reasons why they do it. Ray, Mike Tomlin started his news conference talking about the inability to possess the ball and how it affects this team, whether it's scoring, whether it's being able to run the ball. We mentioned, of course, Jaylen Warren had only 14 carries. He was certainly one of the highlights of that offense, which didn't have many in that game. But you look, Ray, that's the 9th game in a row. Every game this year, the opponent has run more plays than the Steelers, and it's not just more plays. It's on average 14 plays a game more. Against the Chargers, it was 19 plays more. And so that's both a case of the defense not being able to get off the field and the offense not being able to possess the ball. It's been every game this year.
Yeah, I asked Mike Tomlin about that. Does the running game have to be more of a focus for them? And he simply said, no, they got to be better on possession downs, and then the running game will come off that. I also thought it was interesting what he said about Jaylen Warren on third downs. Gerry, in my opinion, he is still the best pass protector among the running backs. He is still the best receiver out of the backfield among the running backs. And for Kenneth Gainwell to outsnap him in that game, 27-24, to me, that's a little bit out of whack. I want Jaylen Warren on the field more than Kenneth Gainwell. And I understand Kenneth Gainwell is a good player, but I think Jaylen Warren is one of your better players on offense.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Ray. I mean, Jaylen Warren has proven to be the number one back. It's not even a 1 and 1A, and while Kenny Gainwell has done a nice job, and I understand him being in the game, there shouldn't be that disparity in snaps between the two running backs. The other problem that the Steelers are having, and Mike Tomlin referenced this, is getting their other receivers in positions to make plays, which is a good way of saying, or a nice way of saying, they didn't get open against the Chargers. And they're going to have to change that. You look at the last 3 games, Ray, their most productive receiver has been the guy who plays the least, and that's Roman Wilson. DK Metcalf has 10 catches. Calvin Austin has 11. It's a few more than Roman Wilson, who has 7. But Roman Wilson has more yards, 113 receiving yards than those guys. He has more touchdowns, too, and he has 2 of the 3 longest plays. And so the guy who's on the field the least is being more productive, if you will, than their regular receivers.
And yet, do you get the sense that they're going to give him more playing time?
They should.
I think they should, but to your point, I think both of those touchdowns, I don't want to say garbage time, but those came late in the game when the game was already decided. So I tend to agree with you there. The other thing I think about, Gerry, is with this offense, you're paying Pat Freiermuth how much money? You're paying Jonnu Smith how much money? To me, those 2 guys are probably 2 of your best offensive weapons, and sometimes they barely play, and they're not a big part of the passing game. So if your receivers aren't going to do it for you, maybe the focus has to be get Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith more involved.
Well, their focus, as we know, Ray, is always on their tight ends. That's just a big part of their offense. And Pat Freiermuth has been more involved the last 3 games. He has a couple touchdowns over the last 4, and he has a few more catches. But Jonnu Smith has I don't want to say he's disappeared from the offense because he was never the big factor after, 85 catches last year with the Dolphins.
Yards,
It had 800 or 900 some yards. And he has just not been, if he's a part of the offense, he's not a big splash play part of the offense. Now, part of that, he had to drop the other day, 2 games ago, I believe, on the first play of the game.
Right.
But they have, they're not getting a lot from him. And if teams are going to take away DK Metcalf, then the Steelers are going to have to get some big-time production somewhere else. And Mike Tomlin says when you don't possess the ball that much, He says you're not able to run the ball, and he says, but if you don't have it, he says you can't score, and he says, and neither of that happened in L.A.
And it's surprising too because Jonnu Smith has a history with Arthur. They were
Right.
both together in Tennessee. They were at other stops together as well. So for Arthur not being able to incorporate him into the offense more, it's a little bit of a head scratcher if you ask me.
Ray, it was the sixth time this year in 9 games the Steelers haven't had 300 yards offense. We're not even talking 400 yards, which is a pretty good barometer. We're talking 300 yards. And you look at the last 2 games, 221 against L.A., season low, 11 first downs, season low. Week before, only 225 yards, which was a season low. So those 446 yards in the past 2 games, that's their second fewest in the past 6 years. That's going back to when Randy Fittner was the offensive coordinator. So their inability to just possess the ball and roll up some yards, at some point you have to look at it and be a little concerned about the lack of production, especially with the guys they brought in during the offseason.
For sure. And where would they be if not for the opportunistic offense early in the season, against the Patriots? They were very opportunistic in the red zone, and they've done that again in a few of their other victories. But, when you're not rolling up the yardage, you're not going to be a dangerous offense. You're not going to be in position to score as much, and that's been their problem here the last couple of weeks.
The one thing Mike Tomlin pointed up that his words, feeling comfortable with Jalen Ramsey and Kyle Duggar at the safety positions, so that's not going to change. So now that raises the question, Darius Slay is in the concussion protocol, as he mentioned today. James Pierre, when he played very well again the other day. He had 3 significant plays. Mike Tomlin talked a little bit at length about what a solid player he has been for this team. But now the question is, okay, if you're keeping Jaylen Ramsey at safety along with Kyle Duggar, now what do you do trying to stop those 2 receivers who killed you the last time?
It's a dilemma, and part of me wonders if there's a little bit of gamesmanship going on in there with Mike Tomlin. Certainly sounded like he was going to keep Jalen Ramsey at safety, but that would mean James Pierre is going to have to play a lot, and that would mean Brandon Echols is going to have to play a lot. And we saw how Echols failed to keep up with Ladd McConkey on more than a few occasions on Sunday night.
Well, we saw what happened last time in Cincinnati when they tried to use Joey Porter and Jalen Ramsey as well on those 2 receivers. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I think they combined for 23 catches, and they had 30-some targets, I believe, and they just ran wide open in the middle of the field and on the edge of the field too, especially on that last drive, if you recall. And so what the Steelers tried then, even with Jalen Ramsey, didn't work, so they're going to have to come up with some different plan for sure.
Yeah, and I think the answer probably lies in more zone defense. I know they switched it up in Cincinnati, but I think they got into trouble mostly when they tried to pit Joey Porter against T. Higgins and Jalen Ramsey against Jamar Chase. That did not work, so I would expect more zone in this rematch.
Steelers have lost 3 of their last 4 games. Their lead in the division is now just 1. The Baltimore Ravens have won 3 in a row, so it's Steelers have the Bears in Chicago. They have the Ravens twice. They have the Bills. They have the Lions. It's going to be a tough stretch for them finishing up, so we'll see how it all plays out. Ray and I will be at that game. Of course, Sunday, it's 1 p.m. at Acrisure Stadium. For Ray Fittipaldo, I'm Gerry Dulac. You're watching Post-Gazette.com.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit Post-Gazette.com.